Hello, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're watching. Thank you so much for joining us to the A4Q World Congress, the first day. So just to give a very quick introduction, today we have the speaker, Jennifer Smith. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Such an interesting presentations every single time we see them. It's so absolutely exciting. Even I get all motivated afterwards. I was going to say just a very quick introduction and not take too much of your time. Jennifer has a communication design background and founded American Graphics Institute over 23 years ago with the goal of empowering people to be confident in the design of all things. Over the years, she has had the opportunity to work closely with user experience and visual designs teams from hundreds of organizations, from 400 to 500 companies to smaller organizations, and much more. So I'm going to pass this on now to you, Jennifer, so I don't take too much of your time.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. And that was a nice introduction. I'm going to talk about the role of UX in developing quality applications. But the way I want to do this today is to actually create something or go through the process to make it more interesting and kind of pull this all together. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to do everything that you do in the UX process in 30 minutes or less, but I'm going to give you a high-level overview and show you some examples. I think you might have a lot of questions, which please go ahead and put them in the chat if you like. I understand I will get those at the end, but I am totally good with communicating with you later if you have additional questions as well, because as I said, covering this at a high level is probably going to open up more questions for you. But I'm also hoping that there are things that you've heard of and need a better understanding of how things work, that it will kind of pull it together. I want to make this as simple as possible is what I am trying to do. Make it as clear and simple. So from a foundational level, this is the process that you would go through. So, just my background again, it was as a visual designer. That's how I started. I write a lot of books on the Adobe tools, and I also design interactive systems, and which I absolutely love. So I moved into UX design about 15 years ago, and I build virtually anything from cash registers to dashboards of trucks and educational systems. And I also am a certified professional with UXQB and an instructor for their test, which is the CPUX. And I'll talk more about that at the end. So what we're going to do, like I said, crash course here, creating an app to find a local food truck in 30 minutes or less. And I'm going to take those processes or those steps and go through them much like I would if I had a little bit more time. But nonetheless, I'm just going to dive in here and say, last year I was looking for a food truck system or app or website. I happen to be in the Boston area. This is what I found. The city of Boston created this website, and built by a developer, obviously doesn't answer a lot of user needs, doesn't provide a lot of information. It's data. And as a UX designer, this is exciting to see, because what we like to do is change data so that we can visualize it in different ways and make it more exciting and answer people's needs. So I checked on it recently, a few months ago, and they did update it. And I was thinking, great, they put a map in, which is awesome. But when you go and let's say that you choose to click on this map and you say, okay, I'm going to click on the name. What do you get? You get an empty parking space where that truck might be at some moment in time. So leading to a little bit of confusion. Maybe we should find out what the users are really looking for. Maybe people are looking for not only the hours, but the menu and a phone number or how to order, so many things that users might need. So I thought this would be a great example to just step back and do a really quick redesign on and bring all the steps in that are important when you're creating a really great experience in whatever it might be. So taking this, that was not addressing UX needs. So without addressing UX needs, people have no reason to use your system. So if it is a website or an application that you're trying to market, if it really doesn't serve a purpose, then of course it's of no use to anybody. So I want to just give you a really quick definition of user experience, because a lot of people don't understand that this is something that occurs before, during, and after use. So somebody being excited about using your application because they know that they can find a food truck easily, they feel confident, they jump on, they use your app, that's working really well and it's successful, and then they get their food in a short amount of time because they pre-ordered it, and they're happy. That's the entire user experience. It's not just somebody using your application or your website. It's how you make people feel about the entire experience. So let's just talk about this a little bit. Good design equals better experience. And it's something to think about because it does increase buyer conversion, gives you more unique visitors, more return users, increased session duration, less percentage of abandoned sales, higher conversion from trial to pay use. So what I'm going to use as my basis for the flow is the human-centered design activities according to the ISO 9241-210 standard, which, if you want to read more about this, comes from UXQB, the International Usability and UX Qualification Board, which basically offers certification in to prove that you have an understanding of this process. Of course, you're not going to follow this exact process every time, and I am not going to be able to follow this exactly for this. But I will go through these activities in order, showing you how this can make a huge difference in the outcome of your application when it's done. So just starting with the beginning, plan the human-centered design process. Having some sort of project plan, like going in, is really important. Doing some sort of analysis and understanding how people are using your product or need to use your product, that's the next step. From that, you build what the user needs are and turn them into requirements. From that, you turn the requirements into features that are seen on the screen, and then you can build the design from that and prototypes and such. And then you can test it at the end. You evaluate the system, make sure it works, and if it doesn't work, you go back to those other stages again. That's what those little gray arrows are. But if it does work, your design solution meets the user requirements. Ding, 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 you created a great app. But it's not just jumping into an application and creating something. You have to do a little bit of thinking prior to doing that, and it really does save a lot of time and frustration later. So human-centered design is based upon an explicit understanding of users, goals, tasks, resources, and environments. So I'm going to start this and keep it at a simple level, but hopefully it'll make sense to you as we go. The goal is to discover user needs to create a more successful product. So how do you do that? You start out with this plan. And so I'm at that very first activity, which is create a user experience project plan, which might just be a Word doc or a Google doc. It's just really simple. And it's just breaking things down so that you're all in agreement if you're working on a team, or even if it's just you, you still need to have a good understanding of where you're going before you start. So just putting a brief down, we sometimes call it a UX brief, but writing down what we're creating, what kind of interactive system it is. Is it going to be an iOS app? Is it a website? It's amazing how many teams I work with that they're a month in and then somebody says, oh, this is a iOS app, right? And everyone else is like, no, it's a responsive app. Like how the confusion can fall into place unless you have some sort of plan that's agreed upon. It also will list team members and the responsibilities, the budget, time frame, what you know so far, if you've done any research, what that might be. And like I said, nothing fancy. It's just words, and we constantly update this as we learn more. So that's the first step. The next thing is to understand and specify the context of use. And this is where a lot of people skip doing the work. They either say, well, we can't talk to our users, or our users are unavailable, or I know what our users want, which is the absolute worst thing to do, because if you are a designer of a system, You are the last person who should be making decisions about what works and doesn't work. And it's not a major undertaking to just talk to a few people. And so in here, this stage, we talk about creating a context of use, specifying what the context of use is, how people use this. And you might find that you have different user groups. You might be creating a food truck app, and you need to create one separate side for the food truck owners and another side for the food truck customers. You have to create task models that show the steps that they typically take, as is scenarios. Whenever you hear as is scenario, that is, how are they doing it now without your app? Are they asking friends where there's a really great food truck? Are they just walking around and looking at lines? How are they doing it now? So that's an as is. Creating personas so that you can connect with users. And then also using user journey maps that just map touch points. And so you could follow somebody around and say, so what are you doing now? And how do you feel about this? And just map their touch points as they're going through. So if you don't have a huge budget, you can connect with your users really easily. If you have minimal resources, you can just go online and find data sources and even do inexpensive surveys. If you have more money, you can spend a little bit more time observing people and actually interviewing them. Use those findings that you discover to determine user groups and what the context of use is. And we're going to go through some of this. But so, as I said, I was just kind of faking that I'm creating this little food truck app. But I'm out there researching existing data from food truck publications and restaurant magazines and such, and finding out that most people who go to food trucks are 18 to 34. Okay, so that's interesting. I also found out in other places that most people spend approximately, in US, $25 a week, which to me is insane when you add that up for the entire year. So, but a lot of money to be spent. Other things that I found out was that people only want to walk about 10 minutes. And so I found information about how far 10 minutes is, 80 meters. I also found out colors that are relatable to food and colors that suggest, positive experiences with food. So these are just like simple data resources from valid sources that exist out there. I can also, doing something really inexpensive, run a survey, create a survey. I can use Google Docs for free. I can use SurveyMonkey and a whole bunch of other websites out there to do free surveys. If I want to get a specific group of people, like I want to only send the survey to business professionals who are 50 to 60 who work in Chicago, I can pay $1 for each person who responds that's within that group. But if you're just sending it out to people that's a free service. And it really helps you to discover various users and user groups. It provides inexpensive but valuable quantitative data, things that are countable, have numbers. You can't argue with the data. It makes it easy to build and define choices. So what we did, we actually ran, I ran a little mini survey just to find out what's going on. And this is what I found out. 99% of people want to look for a food truck on their phone. Obviously, they don't want to walk around with their laptop if they're outside. 50% of users eat lunch out 1 to 2 times a week. 65% of users don't want to walk more than 10 minutes. So in the US, that's about half a mile. 100% of users want to find the type of food they like they want to find Chinese, or they want to find burgers, or Italian food, or chili, or whatever it might be. But this is really valuable information. And so if I take this and I go back to my team and somebody's like, yeah, I really think that we should make this a website instead of a mobile app, I can say, but look, 99% of people want this on my phone. Nobody can argue with you when you have that sort of ammunition. And that's what it provides to you. And a lot of times it's surprising what you find out when you do these inexpensive surveys. If you have a little bit more time to invest, you can do interviews. You can just create a simple script. Don't ever ask your users what they want. Basically, discover what their goals are. So when you go out to lunch and you're looking for a food truck, what are you looking for? Oh, someplace fast that doesn't have a line. So why do you want to find a place that doesn't have a line? Because I only have 30 minutes for lunch and I've got to get back. It's amazing the information that you can find. So you discover what their challenges are, you observe them, what they're doing, and you let them continue the conversation, even if it goes totally off what you expect it to. Again, you find so many discoveries here that offer up opportunities to create a great application later. So through the interviews, this is what we discovered. Most people have a limited time and don't want to wait in a long line. And I should mention to you, you don't need to ask 100 people. You can ask 5 to 10 people and pull in enough information to help you. UX research is different than marketing research. So it is actually based upon what people do at this current time, not thinking about what they're going to do. Like, oh, I think I'll start buying food from a food truck. You're actually asking them about the experience that they're having currently. Most people want to find places that other people recommend. Most people want to be able to review the menus. Most people are loyal to a food truck and want to know where it is at all times. So they want to follow a food truck, which is great. So again, really helpful discoveries that we can take. And once we take those discoveries, we can start building either an as-is scenario, explaining how somebody is currently doing something at this time. We can create a persona, which represents like a user. We assign a name and an age and maybe a little bit more detail. But in this case, I have a quick, easy one. Robert, like many professionals working in the city, doesn't have much time for lunch and finds himself spending a great amount of time researching and speaking to friends about places they recommend. Once he finds a good food truck, he frequently encounters long lines, which forces him to go with a truck that's not correct English, that is further away and has unknown menu choices. So the point being, this is an as-is situation. This is how he is finding a truck now, currently, without any sort of application or system. So we put all this together. We're still in that first box where we're analysis and creating a context of use. We put all this together. We collect user information, the goals that they have, the tasks that they go through currently, the environment they're in, any resources, meaning, time. So the fact that they're limited in time, that's, limited resources, or maybe they don't have a big budget, so that's limited resources, but we include all that information. And that helps us to create the context of use. We now have a really good understanding of who our user is and what their needs are. So we might take them now and create a hierarchy saying, these are the most important things that people really need. So I'm now on the actual third activity. So we did the plan and we did the analysis, context of use, and now I'm specifying the user requirements. So in this stage, I am looking at all those user needs I discovered. Like, somebody's going to need to find a truck that has a short line. Somebody wants to find a truck that's near them. Somebody wants to find food that they like all that stuff. They turn into user needs. Those user needs turn into user requirements. Those user requirements turn into features on my app. So everything is connected. It's almost like a triangle. So you're discovering what everyone's needs are, turning them into requirements and turning them into features. Everything is aligned. Nothing ends up on your application that's unnecessary or distracting, because if the user doesn't need it, you don't put it in. We have a pizza website client we were working with, and they wanted to put a weather widget to tell you what the weather is on the first page of their site. And they didn't have a phone number. So you think back at it and you're like, well, a user need would be that a user must be able to find the phone number for this restaurant. We don't have a user need for the person wants to know what the temperature is when they're ordering pizza. So like that goes away and the phone number goes in. So again, it helps you to defend design and build better design. So here's how we're aligning these. Here's a user need. Basically, user must be able to find a food truck within 1 mile or less from where they're located, turned into a requirement. And what do you need in order to accommodate that? We need a map, right? We need some sort of sort. So we're aligning what we discovered with what's going to end up in our application. User must be able to locate the type of food that they like. So what do we need to have in our app? Oh, we need to have a filter by cuisine, so you can choose that you want chili and find only the chili food trucks, or maybe just to even read the menus. User wants to find a highly rated food trucks. What do we need? We need some sort of rating system. User must be able to see wait time. We need some sort of indicator of wait time. User must be able to pre-order and pay for food from a menu. Well, we need some sort of cart system that accepts popular forms of payment. So if we break it down to this and we just figure out what the features are, and when I say feature, this might be different for everyone else, but I mean anything that appears on my screen, whether it's a checkbox or a picture or a paragraph of text, anything that is on the screen is a feature. And if it doesn't align with a user need or requirement, then it shouldn't be on your screen. So I'm really careful with how I create my designs. And this is how you keep things really simple and clean and non-distracting, by only putting what people ask for on the screen. So here's how we do this. Could be different for many of you, but we'll just take whatever we found out. So if I go back to this list, I will take all the bulleted items, all the things that I know have to be on the screen, and I just put them on Post-its separately. And I understand the hierarchy. So we'll even go back to this and we'll change the order of the items in here to represent what's most important. So if user must be able to find a food truck within 1 mile or less, that goes at the top. And the pre-order and pay was less important, that goes to the bottom. So we do create a hierarchy so that we know when we start building our structure, what has to be right there, right when they open the app, in order to take advantage of the system. So we just put these on Post-its, and we'll just add them, and then just wait, because we'll take it in the next step and we'll do something with those. So the next block, we're done now with user needs and requirements. The next activity, produce design solutions to meet user requirements. This is probably my favorite part as a visual designer, because this is where you go in and actually align those features and start putting things on a screen in order to make it work, and where your prototyping is, and other design things. So what's included in this stage? Use scenarios. So if you remember, I said as is scenarios was what they're doing now without your system. A use scenario would be what they're doing now with your system. Storyboards, which are just basically rough cartoon characters of somebody using your application or system. Task models, like the steps they're going through. The information architecture, which is your structure, your navigation, and the most important part of this entire list. A style guide to indicate, branding and voice, that sort of thing. Wireframes, so that you can actually see what it's forming into. Low fidelity prototypes, which are really quick, either paper prototypes or balsamic mockups, or high fidelity prototypes. So going through this quickly, I explained the difference between these as is versus use scenarios, and I'll make sure this deck is available. But we take those Post-its and now we put them up on the wall, and we're like, hey, this is a really important feature, because they need to find someplace quickly. So we're going to put a map with pins right on the first page, right on the home page. And we're going to put search there. And we're going to list the closest trucks. But when they click on search, we'll have them end up on a search result page. Or when they click on a truck, they're going to end up on a truck page. And then I've got favorites and cart, like things that I wanted to save. But I'm creating my entire app with Post-its. And then we're actually testing it. And within our team, we'll say, okay, somebody needs to find a truck within a mile for them. And we use our fingers and we touch the Post-its and we're like, they would go here. And if we hit a user need and we can't find a solution, or it's so far down that it's difficult to get to, we move the Post-its around and we fix it. We are creating our information architecture in a really quick, easy way. After that, we can say, we know what's going on our home page. We know what's going on our truck page. Let's create a quick prototype. And we typically start with a paper prototype. We'll do sketches, of course, prior to this. And when we think we've nailed it, we'll make something that is more true to size so that we can actually test our system. So it's we're constantly testing it, even if it's internally, making sure that we can reach those or answer those requirements that the users have. So low fidelity means early, incomplete, cheap draft of a product. And a lot of times we'll use balsamic wireframes because it's actually clickable. So if I come in here and I go to this is just what I created just for this session, but I can click on this and it will take me someplace, and then I can go back to home. So I can test my links to make sure that things work, even if it's not done. But it takes you all of 15 minutes maybe to create a really quick balsamic wireframe. And I absolutely love that product. If you haven't used it, it's great for developers and designers alike. A high fidelity prototype would make something that looks more like a finished system. And this would include prototypes built in Axure, XD, Sketch, other prototyping tools. This is actually a prototype here. That prototype works. I can click on the buttons and navigate even though it's on my phone. This happens to be using XD, but you can also use Sketch for the same thing. And so you can build a system. Here's the system right here. I can come in and I can, works like Illustrator, change my text, my words. I can test it right here. I can share it with people on, I don't know if I have any links here that work. Nope, I just did one page. I can share it with people. I can even go in and say, hey, can you share this for development? And when I share it for development, it will even give me the opportunity to say, hey, this works. We tested it. It works fine. Here are all my assets. Here are all the colors I use. And you can check my position just by clicking on here. So it's amazing that role that doing proper UX can play, because it actually helps you develop faster as well. So then we evaluate the designs. I've got 2 minutes. Evaluate the designs against user requirements. And that's when you might do usability tests. And this is when you would provide tasks to users. And again, you only need 5. That's an average amount. And say, can you find a truck that's within 0.05 miles away from you that has a short line or whatever, and watch them as they try to perform this. And if they're frustrated, you tell them to talk out loud. Oh, this is so frustrating. I can't find something. Well, what would make it easier? But you're testing your system, and this we test right off our prototypes. It's not a really smart idea to build the whole system and then test, because that's a lot more work. But if it's just in balsamic wireframes or XD or Sketch, I can just move stuff around. So you don't need a large test group. This came off of Nielsen Norman Group, nmgroup.com. They basically say you find out most of your information with 5 people, and then it kind of just balances out, and then you're just finding out more of the same stuff. So you also want to test heuristics, and this is just a list, like making sure that you're using system status, you're making that obvious to people, you're matching between system and real world speak, you offer user control and freedom, consistency and standards, eliminate errors, make sure instructions are there, offer some flexibility, aesthetic and minimalist design, cut out irrelevant information, which I absolutely love. Help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors, and offer help and documentation. So if all the requirements aren't met, so we went through these. If they're not met, then you go back to whatever steps you need to and circle again. And then when it's done, then you have an awesome system that answers what people's needs are. And so I just wanted to put this up here because I did use the activities from the UXQB. And so if anybody's interested in looking at those activities, you can find that information on uxqb.org. And it is a certification program. I actually teach this program. I find it really helpful. I mean, obviously, not everyone is going to follow the exact same process, but it's nice to have a certification that is good for anybody who's involved in human-centered design, making sure that they understand the process. So 2:31. I'm in Boston. It's only 2:31 here. I was only 1 minute over. I am so psyched. So I'm going to exit this. And if you've got some questions, I can go back because I know that was like how we would say over here, drinking from a fire hose. I just like flooded you with a ton of information. But I can answer any questions that you have if it helps.
Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. Thank you so much. No worries. Like you finished just in the dot, but you could have gone a little bit over. That's no problem. So we have a few of the people in the group saying thank you. That very interesting presentation. A couple of them are asking if they are able to watch this later. I think they catched it probably just at the end. Yes, this session is being recorded. So after this goes live, this will stay in a post. So you're able to go back and watch it from the beginning if you missed parts of it. I have also here Gabriela saying thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much, Gabriela. So if you have any questions now, you can put them in the comment section and we can just go through them for a couple of minutes as we have another presentation coming up not short after. So also, just in case you're interested, I'm going to share the link to the World Congress Congress Hall area in the comment section. And if you have any other questions for Jennifer, you can also probably meet her there just for a couple of minutes after. Correct, Jennifer?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
So if you have any couple of questions regarding what she just talked about, I'm going to be putting right now, again, her topic on screen in case for those that join a little bit afterwards. You can go and also meet her there as well. I have here Theo Jean asking no option to get PowerPoint. Some people might want the PowerPoint slides. I don't know. Maybe you can send it over to us if you would like, Jennifer. And then if you contact us in the A4Q World Congress website, we can forward these ones to you. Or otherwise, you can always meet with Jennifer in the World Congress Congress Hall area to have a little bit more of a chat. Thank you for that, Theo Jean. We also have here Oliver Deneau, actually one of our speakers as well in another of the days. He says, do you use some particular format or approach in order to define requirements?
Oh, boy. So typically, yeah, we do. I mean, we spend a lot of time doing some design thinking. So we'll use affinity mapping where we'll take all the needs and kind of group them together. But a lot of it is done not necessarily, I mean, it's freestyle, it's Post-its. We use, I don't know if it helps, but we use a product called Lucidchart, which allows us to take Post-it like items and put them on the screen and collaborate and move them together so that we can narrow them down to, we can narrow down user needs to just a certain amount of user requirements and then reorganize them based upon hierarchy. So, but basically it all starts with the Post-its and just getting them all down there, like getting everything out of our head and then organizing and then grouping them together. So I don't know if that helps you or answers your question, but we do use affinity maps that help us to then collect all these and organize them into logical groups.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. Olivier, I hope that answers your question. Otherwise, we still have probably a minute or two in which we could have a look. A couple more questions. I have actually just shared the link in the comment section, so you can go over there, and then you can also meet with Jennifer there. Yes, Olivier says it does. Thanks.
Okay, good. And Oliver, I have my email on the screen right now, I believe. So you can always email me directly if you'd like, or anybody can. It's Jason at
Yes.
AGI Training.
Lovely. Let me also put it in the comment section as well, so that way people can easily access it.
Mm-hmm.
One moment. Oh, my screen might be a bit too small. I'm gonna take it over here. There you go. So I'm gonna share this now in the comment section. I hope that is okay, Jennifer, as well.
Of course, yes.
Okay. There you go. So I've also shared her email in the comment section in case you would like to communicate with her as well. So I think that's the time that we have for today. Thank you so much once again, Jennifer, for today's presentation. Such an interesting topic. Every single time I hear you speak, it's so exciting. And I also will be joining later on probably the World Congress. I will see you the Congress Hall area. So we'll see you around.
Okay.
And for everyone's watching, we have another presentation coming up in about 15 minutes, more or less. So you can always watch that one as well. And thank you, everyone, and take care. And I see you next time.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.